NBA 2K22 has finally dropped, and that means it is time to start our MyNBA franchise series. If you're excited for all the great content that I have planned out for this 2K cycle, then make sure to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the post notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the uploads. So going into this series, I really wanted to go back to my roots a little bit. When I started making 2K content a few years ago, the first series I ever did were with expansion teams, and I kind of wanted to go back to that. I wanted to go back to building a team literally from the ground up and putting my own footprint in the team right away with the expansion draft. Rather than using a new team or a fictitious team, I've decided to bring back an old NBA team for this series in the Seattle Supersonics. We have modernized them a little bit, and they will now be referred to solely as the Seattle Sonics. These jerseys are not final, by the way. I'm still going to be scouring the jersey vaults over the next couple of days and picking something I really liked, but I needed something for the video here, so we're going to be rocking with those. We're not going to be the only expansion team, however. I wanted to balance it out to make sure there were an even number of teams per conference. So here are the St. Louis Spirits, another former team. They were actually in the ABA for a very short time, and now they will be in the NBA. They're going to be in the Eastern Conference in the Central Division. We will be in the Northwest Division in the Western Conference. I really wanted to be back in the West this year because I've done teams in the Eastern Conference the past couple of years, so I thought that would be fun. Going into the expansion draft, teams are allowed to protect 8 players from getting picked, and teams cannot lose more than 1 player. So say somebody on the Chicago Bulls gets picked, no other Bulls player is eligible to be selected. So the draft will be serpentine. So we have the first pick, then the St. Louis Spirits will have the next 2 picks, then we will pick back-to-back and so on and so forth. There are a lot of pretty good players on the board, but my strategy going into this draft was to go with young talent. I want to build up a young team. I want to get a young nucleus of guys who I think can develop together and hopefully eventually turn into a championship contender within the coming seasons. So the very first player being drafted by the Seattle Sonics will be Cam Reddish of the Atlanta Hawks. Reddish is a very talented young wing who would have been protected by a majority of the NBA teams had he been on their roster, but since the Atlanta Hawks are so deep, they had to leave somebody good unprotected, and that player happened to be Cam Reddish. For those who watched the Cavs series last year, you may remember Reddish was a big part of that team, but on that Cavs squad, he was a role player. Now, he's going to be the face of our organization going forward. Reddish is inconsistent as a scorer, however, I really like the rest of his game. He's a pretty good playmaker, great defender, great athleticism. If he could just develop his shot a little bit more and be more consistent as a scorer, I think he could be a really, really good player in the NBA for a long time. The Spirits' first 2 selections are John Wall and Malik Beasley. They're looking for higher rated players, so unlike us, they're trying to win right now. So it's pretty interesting that the 2 expansion teams are going with very differing strategies. So now we have back-to-back selections looking for 2 more young players, and a name who popped out at me was Jordan Poole of the Golden State Warriors. Poole, like Reddish, is also 22 years old, entering his 3rd season, and Poole really played well last year. He emerged onto the scene with the injury of Klay Thompson, and he's been quite impressive for Golden State. I was not a huge fan of the selection when they picked him a couple years ago, but he has completely proved me wrong. He's a pretty good scorer from all 3 levels. Again, another talented playmaker, solid defender as well. He's just a well-rounded, versatile wing, and he's the type of player who I like to build around. So Jordan Poole will be joining the Seattle Sonics. We are going to be back on the clock with another pick, and after drafting a couple wings, I want to look for some size here. I want to get a young big man, and we're going to look at Xavier Tillman of the Memphis Grizzlies. So we're drafting another player who played his college ball in the state of Michigan. Jordan Poole played for the University of Michigan, and Xavier Tillman here played for Michigan State. Tillman is an undersized center. He only stands at 6'8", but I think he is the modern NBA big man despite his small frame. He's not a phenomenal scorer, but he's a pretty good passer, and he's a really versatile defender. He can switch onto the perimeter, but he's also really good inside, good shot blocker, and for a 22-year-old kid, he's a really smart player. So he's a high floor guy who I think is going to turn into a really good pro. Bruce Brown and Carmelo Anthony are off the board to the Spirits. So clearly they want to get fans in the seats by having some big name guys like John Wall and now Carmelo Anthony. On to the 4th round. Of course, I want to stick with the strategy of going young. And we're going to take a shot in the dark here on Bol Bol of the Denver Nuggets. Bol Bol is also a center. However, he is 6 inches taller than Xavier Tillman, standing at 7'2". Bol Bol has a higher ceiling, in my opinion, than Tillman, but a far lower floor. He's a very raw player right now, has not shown a ton in his first 2 seasons in the NBA with the Denver Nuggets, but he is a unicorn type of talent. Players with Bol Bol's skill set do not grow on trees. It is very hard to find someone who is 7'2", can handle the ball, space the floor, and is as versatile as he is. Bol has a long way to go in his development, but I think you're looking at someone who is the ceiling of an all-star. On to the 5th round, we're going to be looking at Kelly Oubre Jr. of the Charlotte Hornets. Oubre signed a 2-year contract in the offseason with Charlotte, so by picking him here, we are making a pretty substantial financial commitment. However, I think it's worth it. I think Kelly Oubre is a really good player. Did not play all that well last season in Golden State. He was very inconsistent. His shooting percentages were not good, but he's a good playmaker, good defender, high-level athlete. And of course, he's not too bad to look at either. I think Oubre's probably either going to be the 6th man or the starting power forward right away, and I think he can nicely get a career reset in Seattle after a poor season last year. Thad Young and Jeremy Lamb are off the board to St. Louis. Again, they keep trying to draft the highest rated players to form the best basketball team on day 1 that they can. So now all this team really needs for our starting lineup is a point guard. We need a veteran who can lead the offense, and a player I really like is Cameron Payne of the Phoenix Suns. Payne looked like a bust early in his career with the Chicago Bulls, but he completely flipped the switch on his career last season in the playoffs and really emerged as one of the Suns' better and most important players. He scored the ball very well in the playoffs last year. He's also a good playmaker, and although he's not great on defense, I wanted to find a point guard who is an offense-first guy, someone who can score in bunches and can lead the offense. And for me, I think that's what Cam Payne can do. I think he's a great fit with our team, and I think he's going to do just fine as our day 1 starting point guard. So welcome to the team, Cam Payne, as we are now back on the board here in the 7th round, and I was surprised to see that Josh Hart was still on the board, and I'm not going to let him fall anymore. Hart signed an extension this offseason with the New Orleans Pelicans. However, they have so much young talent, they had to leave somebody unprotected, and one of those somebodies is Josh Hart. He's a very unique type of player. He only stands at 6'4", but he plays big. He's a solid scorer, although he does need to improve his mid-range shooting. Good playmaker, good defender, and he's an awesome rebounder for someone who's really not that big. So Josh Hart's going to be a really nice spark plug, high-energy guy off the bench for us as the Spirits go with a pair of centers in Brook Lopez and Nerlens Noel. With our 8th round selection, I wanted to start looking for some more veterans, and Royce ONeal is a guy who I think would make a lot of sense for us. ONeal is a high-floored player. No, he's not going to ever be a guy who scores 20 points per game. He's never going to be an all-star, but I think he can be a really consistent player off the bench. He's a good three-point shooter. He's a good perimeter defender, and that's what you look for off the bench. Somebody who can be a talented and consistent 3-and-D guy who you can rely on to give you a solid 15 to 20 minutes per game. He's also kind of small at 6'4", but like Josh Hart, he plays big. Into the 9th round now, I wanted to draft a rookie, and there are a few rookies who were unprotected, and a guy who interested me quite a bit was Jaden Springer from the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't think Springer would get a ton of playing time with the Sixers this year, so that's why they unprotected him, but we're going to gladly pick him up. Springer is quite raw. I don't know how much he's going to contribute in year 1, but I do like his skill set going forward, possibly as the long-term point guard of the future. He's an inconsistent but solid three-point shooter, good playmaker, good defender, pretty good athlete as well. He's probably going to rotate between the NBA and the G League this year, but I like what he brings to the table, and I think he's a good player. Kyle Kuzma is off the board of the St. Louis Sounds. I thought about picking him, and Ricky Rubio is as well, as we now go into the 10th round. And when I was looking for super young players, I noticed that RJ Hampton was still on the board, which kind of surprised me. And I think this is a mistake by the Orlando Magic to leave him unprotected. Hampton was a highly regarded prospect out of high school, kind of had a poor season overseas in Australia, but he was good as a rookie last year with Denver and Orlando. And I think, as I said, the Magic are making a mistake by leaving him unprotected. Hampton was solid as a scorer, good passer, pretty good defender for someone of a young age, and he has great athleticism as well. I think Hampton has a higher ceiling than anybody on the board, and he is one of our highest ceilings on our team. So a really solid selection there as we go into the 11th round. For the most part, our rotation is finalized. So I want to look for high ceiling players who may not get a lot of playing time year one, but have the upside to be really good. Brandon Boston Jr., or more commonly known as BJ Boston, is exactly that. Boston was another super highly regarded prospect out of high school, went to the University of Kentucky last year, and to put it bluntly, he was not good. However, with his physical pedigree and his high school success, he was still drafted in the second round by the LA Clippers. However, I think he has a better chance of developing here with our Supersonics. Again, I don't think Boston is going to play a ton year one. He's going to get some minutes here and there, but I don't think he's ever going to be a consistent rotation guy for us this first season. But he has a ton of upside, and for the 11th round of the expansion draft, I really like that pick. Robert Covington and Josh Jackson are off the board to the Spirits as we now go into round 12. We're going to look at another rookie. This time it'll be point guard Dusunmu of the Chicago Bulls. I feel a little bad for Ayo here because he played his high school ball in Illinois, went to the University of Illinois, and got drafted to play his pro ball in Illinois. So he's no longer going to be the hometown kid, but I want to field the best team I can. And for me, I believe picking Dusunmu here is exactly that. He was phenomenal in his 3 years at Illinois. Doesn't have any major strengths, but he's a jack-of-all-trades player who does not have many weaknesses. I think he's a pretty high floor, and he's going to be a successful backup point guard in the NBA for a number of seasons. On to round 13. Again, we're going to go with another high-ceiling player, this time in Jamias Ramsey of the Sacramento Kings. Ramsey was selected in the second round of last year's draft by the Kings, and he's very raw, but he's also very young at 20 years old, and he's very athletic. He's probably going to need to spend some time in the G League, but if he develops, I don't see a reason why he can't be a good rotation player in 3 to 4 years from now. And at this stage in the draft, that's what we're looking for. We're not necessarily looking for guys who are going to contribute right away, but players who can develop in our organization and hopefully be pretty good rotation players down the line. The Spirits will use their final 2 picks on veterans Al Horford and Goran Dragic. As we get to the 14th round, our final pick in the draft, we can only select players from Miami, OKC, or Dallas because every other team has had a player taken. I could go for a young guy here like Robinson Earl or Tyrell Terry, but we need a veteran. We need a grandpa and somebody who can be a leader and has won in the past. That player for me is PJ Tucker of the Miami Heat. I don't know how Tucker would feel about leaving Miami, a possible championship contender, for Seattle, a team who's probably not going to win a lot of games these next couple of seasons. But if PJ Tucker can embrace his role as the leader and the veteran on our team, I think it could be a really good fit. PJ Tucker is the type of guy who can change a culture. And with a super young team, we need a veteran leader in the locker room who can really create a winning culture. Tucker won an NBA championship last year in Milwaukee, and he was a key player on that team. So that will conclude the expansion draft. 2 very different strategies from the Seattle Sonics and the St. Louis Sounds. The Sounds want to be a competitive team year one. They drafted a lot of the higher-rated players on the board. The Sonics, on the other hand, are looking at the bigger picture, looking for more of the long term. Yeah, they're probably not going to win a lot of games this year, but they drafted players who have a lot of upside and can possibly form a young, youthful, and hopefully winning culture down the line. So overall, this was a very successful expansion draft, and I really like the way our team looks. So before the season, I do want to talk about the draft class. I will be creating a fictitious draft class with a lot of subscriber-made players by you guys. If you would like to make a player for the upcoming draft class, then make sure to go join my Discord server. The link is in the description, and you can also communicate with me and other fans in Discord. So if that interests you, and if you want to make a player, make sure to join the server. Again, the link is in the description to the video. So that brings us to the start of season number 1, the inaugural rotation will feature Cam Payne, Jordan Poole, Cam Reddish, PJ Tucker, and Xavier Tillman as the starters. The bench unit will be Kelly Oubre Jr. as the main sixth man, along with Royce ONeal, Josh Hart, RJ Hampton, and Bol. The guys who will not be getting minutes right now are Jaden Springer, Dusunmu, Ramsey, and BJ Boston. A lot of them are going to be rotating through the G League, and some of those guys are going to get minutes throughout the year if we possibly trade players away or somebody gets hurt. Those guys can step in and get some experience. So that will conclude episode 1. Next time, we're going to play our first game of the season against Boston, our home opener against the Suns. We're also going to do some simulating as well. I'm really excited for this series. I hope you guys are excited as I am for the Seattle Sonics, my NBA franchise. So again, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new and enjoyed the video. Our next episode will likely be within the next couple days, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Peace out.